I've got my bass notes today, and I don't always. So I'm feeling confident that the voice is going to be there.
Good, good. Welcome, Bob Einweck. How
Hell,
long has it been since you've been in Clinton?
I was here 2 years ago
2 years
for
ago?
summer.
You come every couple years, or?
I usually come every 5 for the reunions, but I got a wild hair and jumped in the car.
Right.
Come on.
So you drive usually when
I
you come?
normally do drive.
Okay. I prefer to drive when I go out.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't like airports so much, and you get to see something if you drive.
exactly. That's my favorite part is you see everything instead of flying over it.
And I don't do freeways.
Yeah,
I
I
see
don't
all the
like
small
them.
towns coming up through. I take angles through states, and
Right.
it's maybe a little longer and a little more, you know, slow down to 25 to get through these towns. But
Right.
otherwise, all you see is fast food.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Once I got on the freeway in Kansas, I'm like, there's literally a McDonald's every 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
And I hadn't seen one for, 16 hours coming out of Santa Fe and all the way to Santa Fe. So
Right.
uh, it's interesting that with the advent of the freeway, you can drive all the way across America and not see any of it.
Yeah, true, very true. That's, you know, how long have you lived in Tucson?
83.
Since '83.
Yeah.
83 years. I was thinking, what? No, that's. Oh, you've been out there
Yeah,
a
I look
while.
pretty
then.
good for my age, don't I? I'm 107 now.
Yeah, I have an aunt that lives in Las Cruces.
I've
She
done
likes
a
it
lot
out
of shows there, probably 150
Really?
shows there. Yeah.
Well, she's, I think, 87 now, so she probably hasn't seen it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, welcome home.
It's great to be here. It's exciting to be here for this reunion, 50th reunion.
50-year reunion. Holy cow.
180 people signed up.
Is that right?
Show.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah, we got a crew.
I remember back in high school, you know, they saying, "Oh, you're going to have 25-year reunion." I think, oh, that's so far in the future. Boom, it's here.
It's here, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, it goes fast.
And a lot of the folks, of course, that's the only time you see them is at the reunions.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
And so, with this one being a bit of a culmination where everybody's coming, I don't think a lot of people go to the 55th reunion.
Right.
They might, whoever's left would come to the 60th.
Right.
But at 68 years old, between years 68 and the year of being 78 years old, there's going to be a lot of diminished.
Yeah, for sure.
Diminished returns.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
this may be the last time that a lot of us see each other.
Yeah, that's very true.
You have to really take that into heart when you look at this,
Yeah.
And like, it's a really good time to mend fences and try to unburn the bridges.
Yep, exactly. My brother-in-law is in that exact situation. He, in high school, he ended up losing a lot of friends,
Yeah.
and buddies and stuff, and all in one fell swoop. And then he's been slowly, just in the last couple of years, getting in touch with some of them. Hey, how you doing? And it's so heartwarming for me to see it.
Yeah.
I think, because I know for years he's felt like, oh man, I lost all this and I
Yeah.
lost that, and
That's our plight, that's our life, and for everyone, it's like you build this all up and then it has to go away. And
yeah,
sometimes it goes away slowly and sometimes it goes away all at once.
right, yeah, for sure. So I met you. Oh, I can't remember the year. It's been a while ago.
Yeah.
And at that time, you were saying you didn't want to be a performer. You just wanted to be a songwriter.
That sounds like something I would say.
And you said, "Yeah, I just want to sell a few songs and make a living off of it."
Yeah.
I thought, oh, so have you changed that, or?
Well, I don't know when exactly you were talking about, but for the first 20 years of my playing, I was trying to make a living. And so
Right.
there's a direct kind of disconnect between making a living as a musician and being a songwriter. Because nightclubs and restaurants, that's the last thing they want is a songwriter. They want someone to come in and sing the songs that people know to make them happy about that. And you come in and they don't know who you are, and you're singing songs that they don't know. You better be pretty good at it.
Right.
Because you're up against a wall here, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And oftentimes they leave maybe liking what they heard, but they walk out and they don't know who you were. And so the next time you go to play, it's the same thing over and over again because nobody knows who you are because you're playing these cover songs and they never get into your psyche. They're just into that song. So I just found as a performer, I can't make deep connections with people by playing cover songs. I can't do it. I mean, I can entertain them. But
I understand that,
you know,
yeah.
So it's a slog. There's no way around it, you know. And if you get, like, I'm doing this show at the Revue, and there's going to be 70 people there, and half of them will only maybe have heard one or two of my songs. So I
Right.
got 20 songs that are originals, and they're not all about puppies and rainbows,
Right.
you know, and they don't all reveal themselves on first listen to what the song is about. So that's why I like the songwriter process. You put it on a record and you hand it to somebody, they can listen to it over and over and over until they get it and love it. But the one-time show, they might have just leave going, what happened? You know, because it's a lot of information.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Clay Pigeons, I think, is
Yeah.
the first one you sent to me.
Was it Blaze Foley tune?
Yeah.
That's a cover, but that's not really a cover
Right.
because it might have been the first time you ever heard the song.
Right. It's an obscure song for sure.
Yeah, and then John Prine puts it on a record.
Right.
And then it's not an obscure song anymore.
Yeah, nothing John Prine does is
No.
obscure for long.
And I met that songwriter, and that's why I was doing that song.
Really?
I met him in Austin, yeah, Blaze Foley.
Cool.
Yeah. He didn't like me, but I met
Yeah.
him. He didn't like much of anybody. He was kind of gruff, you know, and his manager, who was a barefoot guy with coveralls and a hippie with long hair, was his manager. He introduced me to Blaze, and Blaze, I want to meet this guy, songwriter. His name's Bob Einweck. And Blaze went, but I met him.
Well, that's good.
I knew of him, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I knew what kind of guy he was, and that he was gruff like that. It was his persona. He didn't dislike me.
Right. You hear stories, but until you meet him in person, you go, oh, he's really like that.
Yeah, right. Well, he was a guy who wore a big cowboy hat with a rebel flag on it.
Right.
That just, he didn't mind stirring up the muck a little.
Right. Well, do you remember the first song you wrote, or?
Yeah, I was up in Sebula. My sister and brother-in-law. Well, I moved out of Clinton because I caused a lot of trouble here, and I had to kind of make my way out. And because my parents said, you know, you can't bring the police to our house anymore. You have to live somewhere else. So I moved up with them, and you know, I hadn't even started playing guitar yet, but I had in my mind that I was a poet, songwriter, and I didn't have access to a guitar. Nobody I knew had one that they would loan me. So it would have been the summer of '75, or the late spring '75, and I was up there by myself. They were farming and working, and I went down and took a walk down by this little trickle of stream, and I wrote something that went like, "A brook runs by a shady tree, perhaps it makes me think of thee. Its beauty flowing free and brave reminds me of the love you gave." And it's the most kind of trite, silly, but it probably could be turned into a real song, you know.
Right.
But that's the first time I ever really remember trying to think like a poet. And actually, that's the problem with it, is I was trying to write like a poet
Right.
instead of write what I thought, you know. So other than that, as far as songs that haven't had any longevity, I didn't remember any of the songs that I wrote until like '78, which would have been 3 years into my guitar playing.
Okay.
And that was one called, they'll have to come to me. But I think the oldest song that I still sing, I wrote in 1979, and it was about a fellow from Clinton named Jerry Dithmart. And Jerry Dithmart and I were roommates in Austin, Texas, and he was horrible at housekeeping, and we had a continual run of dish wars of whose turn it was, or why can't you clean the kitchen? And so I ended up writing this song. Sometimes life just feels like dirty dishes. And it's a cute little song. I don't sing it too much, but I put it on a record. So that's the oldest one that I wrote that I actually recorded.
Right. So do you have a lot of songs from like Clinton and Iowa City? You lived in Iowa City, and
I wasn't really writing much in Iowa City. The songs are mostly from Austin, and then my, New Mexico, Rochester, New York, Denver, wherever I was living at the time.
right.
I don't know if I ever wrote a song in Clinton.
Really?
I don't think I have.
I know you have a couple songs about Clinton.
There are plenty of them
Where-
about it. There's a lot of reminiscing about Clinton. But I haven't spent enough time here as an adult to
Right. Right.
really. And then when I'm here, the thing about songwriting is it's a solitary exercise. And when I'm in Clinton, I'm not solitary. I'm like visiting 17 people, and I got a list of other people that I'm not getting to. So I
Right.
don't really have time to sit in a room and contemplate my navel and write a song.
Yeah, that's one thing. When you're going, well, in Clinton, in your case, when you're coming to Clinton, you have so many people you want to see, and you just run out of time. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
maybe next time.
Last time I was in town, I missed Joe Sanders.
Oh.
And then he died, in
Yeah.
the interim. And that made me sad. It made me sad to miss him, and it made me sadder when he
Right.
passed that I
Right.
didn't get that chance to see him. And, I drove out to his house. He wasn't home. He may be coming back soon. I had someone else I had to go see.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So there's nothing unique about that, it's just, but Clinton is a thing with the sound is of such a size, and the school is so large. If you went to high school in Clinton in the '70s, and you don't have 50 friends
Right.
still,
Right.
then you did something wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was easy to have hundreds of friends,
Yeah.
because everybody merged and melded. We were all in it,
That's very true. Yeah.
Not many places are like that. It has to be the size, it has to be, got to be the component that made that happen. Because, as I'm listening and talking to people that lived here for their whole life, I'm stunned kind of by how many of these kids all went to Catholic grade schools.
Right.
I didn't know that until they were telling the stories last night. It's like, you went to St. Pat, you went to St.
Right.
St. Boniface. Oh my God, I just thought you went to public schools. So it's what we have in common in this town. Is in multitudes.
Right. I've been jotting down memories and stories, from my childhood, and I was thinking about it, and there used to be 5 Catholic grade
Yeah.
schools in town. It's like, holy cow, that's a lot of grade schools. And then, of course, when they merged into the high school, the high school shrunk in size considerably because
Yeah.
it was more money. Well, not everybody could afford that.
And not all the kids got good enough grades in grade school that the parents wanted to keep paying for private school.
And they got tired of the nuns.
Yeah. There was a story last night that, I don't know, it's kind of a funny one, so I'll tell it because they told it twice because some important people didn't hear it. But apparently there was a music class, and there was a nun, and a fellow named Billy Gordon, who ended up being a good friend of mine, turned around and faced away from her and was doing this, directing. And she, of course, spotted him from behind doing that. And she came over and she whacked him across the face, and he had like 4 lines on his face where she slapped him so hard. And then she grabbed him by the ear and pulled him out to the door and said, "Now we're going down to the office." And then she turned around and said to the class, "Keep singing, class." It was just a hilarious song about St. Pat's, you know, and a couple of guys that you could picture doing that.
Right,
you know?
that's funny.
Especially the birds in the air, you know, we're directing the choir with the birds. Clever kid, you know.
That reminds me, I remember, I don't remember what year it was, I remember the whole school being gathered in the auditorium at St. Mary's for a piano recital. And you were on the piano. And you came out and you made a mistake right off the bat.
Yeah.
And you heard a voice from off stage, "Start over, Bobby, start over." And I think, geez, lady, let him play. You know?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Did I start over?
Yes, you did.
Did I get it better?
I don't. You made a mistake twice in a row, and you would hear her, "Start over, Bobby, start over." It's like, oh my God.
I'm glad I don't remember that. I appreciate you sparking that up.
But that what I was going to say. So you've had an interest in music for years and years, since you were a little kid.
You know, when I came home from the hospital, my brother John was already a skilled piano player.
Really?
And we had a piano in the living room, and he was like boogie woogie, ba-doom, 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 playing all that boogie woogie.
Yeah.
And then sometime like in the early '60s or whatever, my mom bought him a Thelonious Monk album.
Oh, wow.
And the music around the house changed. There was a lot more complexities going on. And so, you know, I was always the one that was sitting there listening to my brother.
Right.
Practicing or jamming is what he was doing. You know? And, you know, but really the key for me was I was blessed with a sense of pitch. So I could always sing. And I got in trouble a lot for singing because I sang at the dinner table, and because I was a card, you know, and I always wanted to entertain. I had all these brothers, so I had a built-in audience, and my mom was constantly at me, "No singing at the dinner table," and I just had music, the melodies in my head and in my heart, and I honestly, when I was a kid, I remember hearing that song, Big John, Big Bad John.
Right.
And I had a sense when I was like 6 years old that I knew what the song was going to say. Like the first time I would listen to a song, I knew what the rhyme was going to be.
Really?
And nobody else knew that but me. But I was just sitting there going, "Oh, he's going to say book now." And then the guy would say book. And I was just like, wow. So I just got it. I just understood it somehow intuitively, the songwriting thing, you know, and the rhyme schemes. And so then I think around 6th grade, they put me in the black and white suit with the trios, and we went around during Christmas and went from house to house singing Christmas carols.
Oh, yeah.
And that was some of my earliest learning. And do you hear what I hear, what I hear, what I will never quit loving that song. It's one of the first ones I remember ever singing.
Oh, yeah.
So then my claim to fame in Clinton was in the 7th grade, my brother Tom and I did a duet at Midnight Mass.
Really?
And that's a big audience.
Yeah.
The church was full, and it's a big church.
Yeah, for sure.
So I had that kind of performance bug before I really had any musical inclination or skills. You know, I picked the guitar up pretty late. After the Beatles came, I went down in the basement and I grabbed a piece of plywood and put some nails in it, and I strung some rubber bands on this piece of wood.
Really?
And I faked it. And I asked my mom, you know, sometime in the next 5 or 6 years after that about a guitar. And she, of course, said, "If you learn the piano, then we can talk about the guitar." And we already had a piano player that I wasn't going to be able to compete with, so I didn't want to play the piano because it would always be in John's shadow as a
Right.
piano player. I needed a different instrument, and I didn't get one into my hands until I was a freshman in college.
Oh, yeah.
A guy on my
Oh.
floor had one that he wasn't playing, and it was like a 3/4 size guitar, and he let me have it, and I kept it in my room, quit going to class, and started learning my GCD stuff. You know.
All right.
And then I think the end of that first year in college would have been the spring of '76. My Social Security checks caught up, and I got 2 in 1 month. And so I went out to West Music in Iowa City, and I had $200, and I walked into a store and I bought the guitar that cost $200. And in the last year, I met the guy who sold it to me.
Really?
Yeah, his name is John Baumgartner. He's out from Tama. And of course, he didn't remember me. He sold 1,000 Alvarez's.
Sure.
But had that guitar, and it became my performance guitar when I started actually playing out. And yeah, that was just serendipity that I got that extra check, or I would have gone home that summer without a guitar.
Yeah, there you go.
So I went home with a nice guitar.
Right.
And I got myself a job at Clark's gas station.
Right, I remember.
Working the graveyard
On
shift.
Comanche Avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was working the graveyard shift, and I got to work at 11, and nobody came in for gas after 1 until like 4 in the morning. I sat in the Clark store and learned how to play the guitar. Played
Nice.
3 hours a day on the night shift.
And you got paid to
I was
learn.
getting paid like $2.17 an hour to do it.
Yeah, I can't beat that.
So I played there more than I played anywhere previous. You know, I had my own guitar and I was in love with it because it had this big sound that I wasn't used to, and just kept at it. You know,
Right.
not a lesson in sight, and you know, as I say about some people that I've known, and maybe the hardest thing about being a musician is when you try to reinvent music and poetry.
Right.
You really got to learn it from the idiom, from what's happened historically. If you're going to try to reinvent it, you're not going to be very good for 30 years.
Right. There you
And
go.
then you'll have your own style, and you will be cool. And that's kind of what happened to me. It all kind of melded with some lessons finally, and they were right-hand lessons. I kind of on my third record, I showed up in the studio, and after taking some lessons, and the producer in the studio, Steve Perkins, he said, I don't know what happened. He said, but you went to New York for 6 months, and you came back, and now you know how to play the guitar. I had already been playing for 15 years at that point. But you're doing this thing. Getting that alternating bass changed everything. The Merle Travis picking changed everything. So, and that was what I learned in New York, right-hand style.
We're going to take a little break here. Can we hear one song before we go to break, and then
Absolutely.
hear a couple more in the next half hour?
Okay.
So what do you want to play for us?
I'm going to play a song about a Clintonian named Ed Golden, who was a railroad brakeman who fell off of a train out by Boone, lost an arm and 3 fingers on his right hand. He became a dear friend of mine down in Tucson, and as in combination of 2 things, it was an intriguing story about what happened to him and the way that he climbed himself out and got his degree and became an upstanding community member. And the other part of it is I wanted to honor him because of who he was. So I released this. The song came out on my 3rd record, and I was struggling with guitar. I was struggling with that Merle Travis thing, and I wasn't quite there yet. So this, in the last year, and for this upcoming show, I wanted to do this song. So I created a new arrangement. And instead of doing it in the key of C, I'm still doing it in C, but I'm doing it with an open G tuning, capo 5, and it's a completely different picking pattern. And I don't know, I think I got it. I think it's what the song needed all along, and I think I earned it.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So here's the thing called Cap and Gloves. way back to the railroad track. The walk I'm on won't give me slack. Chicago line was a bottle of wine. Every company man wore cap and gloves. Cap and gloves, cap and gloves. Every company man wore cap and gloves. Train was cold that night, I'm told. The heavy drink was mine to hold. I lost my grip and I lost my hands. Fell off of that train and this walk began. Cap and gloves, every company man wore cap and gloves. CMW man, since time began. I got a pension and a union card. Trip up town to the old boneyard. Size 10 cowhide is a train I ride. Short-handed, but I'm satisfied. These gloves I wear in my pockets now. I hung on to that cap somehow. Hell yeah, cap and gloves, cap and gloves. Every company man wore cap and gloves. Cap and gloves, every company man wore cap and gloves.
All right, Bob Einweck, live in the KMCN studio. On Facebook Live. We're not on the air live, but we're on Facebook. So we're going to take a little bit of break here, and we'll be back in maybe 5 minutes or so, and join us back. I'm going to cut this video off so I can download it, because
A little bit at a time?
you have to do all these rules, because I've tried doing a full hour, and
Yeah,
then I
don't like
can't
it.
get it downloaded. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be back in a few minutes, so stay tuned, won't you?